Many of the things that I've been able to accomplish is because I have been fearless in asking the question or asking for the order. Yeah, I fail a ton of times. I fail every day. Take every call and take every meeting. I don't care who it is. I think what really makes the difference between entrepreneurs that become successful or not is kind of makes me sound like sort of a sociopathic entrepreneur. Like I, always seek out, some within reason risk taking. I'm not fearful of what happens. I think what really makes the difference between entrepreneurs that become successful or not is there's a fear factor no matter what. You're not going to get over that. But I think it's about if you are failing at what you're trying to pursue, or you're passionate, you have to go through that line. Are you capable of doing this project, idea, service, or business? And what are you going to do if it is failing? How are you going to pivot? What is your, how are you going to move? So I think that's where the mistakes are made. Like people don't change like direction if they're getting the wrong feed or they're not listening or ego gets in the way or not understanding something or not surrounding yourself with people that can help you or not having a good team. So I think that's kind of what happens, So it's like, I think there's no way to get away from fear of failure. It's easy for me to say, you shouldn't fear failure. Well, it's impossible for me to like get in someone's head. Like, what am I supposed to do? But it's a matter of like, how do you, surround yourself or how do you move past those fears or how do you move to a place where you can accomplish the ultimate goal? So yeah, I failed a ton of times. I fail every day. It's every day there's a failure. I mean, it's not like, I walk out in the morning, I'm like, oh yeah, this was great. And so what do I do with that? I mean, you're going to switch. I mean, the difference is I laugh at it. I mean, I'm like, okay, I screwed that up. And so I think it's good to own it. I think that's important. People don't do that. And I think there's a lot of things that he taught me. He taught me humor. I mean, I think humor is incredibly important in my life, in laughing at yourself, laughing with others, not at others. Unless they're a comedian, they can laugh at them. And so, I think that's important. I think it's important parts of what things that he taught me. He taught me about humility. He taught me about being super kind. He taught me about being selfless. I mean, my gosh, he was, I can remember Thanksgiving dinners where he was inviting people that were like, some people were homeless or had no place to go. Like we have like random people coming in the house all the time, for him wanting to help or wanting to do things. So I just remember, him teaching me things that I think are instincts of what everyone should be as a human being on this planet. So I think it's, so that's what he's given me. And I try through the story in the book and try to share that experience and the fun associated with building a business or the fun associated with developing relationships or, the enjoyment rather than all these failures. I was asked an interesting question. I'm sorry to talk so long.
Yeah, no worries.
It was an interesting question. I never thought about it. So I'm certainly not an expert in Scandinavian culture, but it was a radio station or something and asked me, would you answer this question? She said, in Finland, and I like, I've been to Helsinki, but I don't know anything about Finnish culture. There's absolutely no, they do not allow in their culture for people to ever talk about failure. It's like completely like off the table, never talk about it, nothing. Even though they're very successful countries, successful peoples, successful businesses and environment. And so she goes, do you feel like that's similar in the United States? And I'm like, well, I'm certainly not an expert on Finnish behavior. And I said, well, perhaps. And I never thought about it this way. The US is similar to Finland. And so I think people talk about it, but do they feel that? So I think people like literally feel they don't want to talk about failure. They literally don't tell you about failure. They don't talk about it. So I think it's a sort of similarity. I think we are more open in saying things like to try to say it's okay to fail, but I don't think people really believe that. So, it was a really interesting thing. I never really thought of it that way. I'm like, yeah, I think that's a major problem. People accepting those issues or how are you moving off of it and what are you doing? And people love humility and people like people that are honest and are telling you their faults or are telling you their weakness or giving you your I have a thing in the book. I called it the Maxine maneuver. Did you remember reading that? And so the Maxine maneuver was I edit that out. I forget. So Maxine maneuver is I had this literally 5-pound Yorkie poo, and the dog was very cute and really sweet. And if it ever did anything wrong, it literally rolled on its back, like, it's like, Maxine, what are you doing? And she would roll on her back, look super cute, and it was like, all right, fine. So like what she showed me was like vulnerability is an amazing and powerful tool. So let's say you have a bad hand. I mean, in other words, if you're playing poker, it's just a bad hand. So if you just say, I got a bad hand, I got nowhere to go, people usually respond to that, not like coming in with strength or whatever. So if you have a bad hand, sometimes the best thing to do is, I got a bad hand. Can you help me? What can I do? How do I fix this? People tend to not just pounce. I'm not everyone. I mean, the news is filled with things that people pounce on weakness, but I don't think everyone's like that. So anyway,
Yeah, yeah, you're right. So going back to what you're saying about failure, do you have like a favorite failure that you had maybe with your business or like sometime in your life?
a and then one never asked me that one. A favorite failure. Oh, my favorite failure was, and it was a very strong experience, was I was a new trader
Yeah,
um, in Chicago. I was trading Swiss franc and forex or FX as people call it. And this will date me. And it was James Baker was the Secretary of State, and Iraq invaded Kuwait,
yeah,
and he was going to come out of a meeting, if I remember correctly, and say we're going to be at war or not. So what happens is during turmoil, people tend to go to the dollar. They tend to buy dollars because they feel there's more security in it, traditionally speaking. And so I bought a lot of dollars. Like, in other words, I expected the dollar to explode. He was going to come out, say we're going to go to war with Iraq, and you obviously know the history. And I expected the dollar to rally, and so I was going to make all this money. What I didn't realize is that already was built into the market. So the failure was if you know it already, it's already there. Like everyone else knows it. So in fact, the dollar collapsed because it already run up before he walked out of the meeting, and I lost a ton of money, which was not my own. I
yeah.
was, working for somebody, and that was a it was a disaster. And I remember that sinking feeling, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm already fired. I'm in this job for like a week.
Mhm.
I'm derailed. At 24 years old or whatever it was, and so I went upstairs to who I was working for at the time, who was a mentor of mine. He laughed. Ironically speaking, he had the same reaction that my father would have, and he started laughing. He goes, "Well, now you learn a hard lesson, so get back down there. So just stop licking your wounds and get down there and start trading." So it was good. So that's my favorite failure, and also I was rewarded. I wouldn't say rewarded, but it was accepted of that failure, even though there was a massive amount of money to me at that moment in time lost. He knew that that was something that I needed to learn and something that I needed to process. So yeah, that would be probably one of my favorites. There've been countless other um, failures with social, or I mean, I've done things where I had a very large real estate company, and I've humiliated myself because there were probably in the end 500, and it grew to 1,000 when we sold and merged. And so at one point, I couldn't remember all the names and faces of the people that were working for us, or me for that matter. And so I would recruit them again. I would meet them somewhere and say, hey, you really need to work for us. And then like, I already do. And I'm like, so I immediately started laughing. I'm like, well, you are amazing. There's no way to recover from that. And so they would just laugh. And I said, oh my God, I'm really sorry, whatever. So I like, there's just things that you do during the day or weeks or whatever, and you just make mistakes and you own it and you move on. And if the person didn't accept it. I mean, if they quit on the spot, I wouldn't blame them. However, what am I supposed to do? So there's been tons of times that those are things that happen. So, or forgetting things. And also grudges. Like, why do people hold grudges? I mean, unless somebody does you a terrible wrong. I mean, there are things that I suppose you should hold grudges. But in general, most grudges are wasted time. Because it really is. So I don't remember, like, I don't, like, people, like, will do something wrong, not seriously wrong, business wrong or whatever. And then, I don't hold a grudge. Like, I can, years later, do a deal with them or something like that. And I wouldn't even remember. And people around me will say, don't you remember that? I'm like, yeah, that's all right. We're good. So I think there's a lot of wasted time with that. People waste time. Like, they did this to me and they did this. And I think that's human to some degree. People make mistakes. People do the wrong thing. People have bad days. People don't feel good that day. You don't know what was going on in their lives.
Yeah.
Who knows what was going on? And they were upset or angry or didn't want to deal with it. So yeah.
Yeah, that is like a really good way to look at it. Like you always just got to think about it from the other person's perspective. Like
Yes.
they just made a mistake, which everybody does.
Hmm.
And I think like one of the reasons why like you've been like super successful is like you you just like genuinely want to help other people and like want to do good in the world. Is that something that also comes from your father?
Well, I mean, I suppose I can tell. Yes, I mean, I think it's your upbringing, but I think there are people. I think there's a lot of people out there that may have had really bad upbringings and negative experiences, and they still want and wake up in the morning and want to go good in the world. I don't think there's an inherent thing in humans that are like want to do bad. I don't
Yeah.
think that's inherent. I think it's sometimes learned behavior or the things have been so negative in their lives, or they feel like they haven't any control in their lives, or they feel like they have zero capability of changing the course, and so there's anger management, and then there's like sort of they're getting taking the wrong track, or they feel there's no other opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of studies on these things like human behavior and the psychology of being a human, or the psychology, but nobody's perfect. If you are perfect, then you get sainthood and like you
Yeah.
literally have been selfish all life. There's nothing you've ever done in your entire existence that has not been something for yourself. So I cannot claim sainthood here, so I appreciate you saying that. But no, there are things that I do that are selfish, and I want them, or I'm not always like selfless, but I do enjoy helping people, and I think that, as I say on my LinkedIn, finding success through the joy of others. I think that there's nothing more pleasurable for me than if I'm able to open a door or window for somebody. If later they come to me and say, "Hey, you changed my life," it feels really good. So there's
Mhm.
no better payment than seeing um, somebody succeed and somebody you having a part of that. You're not necessarily having all to do with it, but if you can change the course of someone's existence, or if you can change, or if you have the ability to do it, you need to do that. And that is not about money. I think everyone has ability to change the course of other people's lives. I think everyone has the ability to open a door or window, regardless of their financial condition, regardless of where they are, a social strata, or what family they've been in, or what power they have. I think everyone has the ability to do that. So I do think everyone is responsible for doing that. If you see something and someone needs help and you're able to help them somehow, some way, that doesn't mean giving them money. That means introducing them to someone. You need to do that. And so I live that way, and I try to teach people to do that. And I think people in general try, and it makes a huge difference. I mean, it doesn't matter how old you are or young you are, or you should be doing that. And so anyway, I can go on and on and on and bore you to death on this, but
Oh, for sure. How can someone like I guess unlearn the belief that they need to be selfish though and start living their life or start just like doing things for other people more. It like do you get what I'm saying? Like if someone's more of like a selfish person, how can they like unlearn that and then like start to become more selfless and get in the habit of like doing more good for other people?
well, that's a great question, Samuel. So I
Thanks.
think I can answer that. I think I can change the course of history. So it's a lot of it's a difficult question to unpack. I think that it's a matter of what people feel during the day. Are they not happy in their existence, and do they feel that they're causing harm or whatever, and do they want to change that? So I mean that goes back to the beginning of what is their behavior? Why are they selfish? What are they doing? But I mean, I'm on social media. I use social media. It's very successful for me. Even an older person as myself, that's the way people communicate today. But I do think that it has a tendency to feed um, uh, through their own algorithms. And I'm not reinventing the wheel here, to feed people what they want to see or hear in whatever mood or mode they're in. And I think that a lot of the stuff that young people see is not true. Okay, I think it's aspirational in a way that doesn't exist, or the
Right.
aspiration has to be fed by feeding people, lines or BS that effectively put them into a circle of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like what I always say, like, you need to do in your life, not follow others. You need to follow your own path. You need to follow what your inner genius is and what are you really good at in order to create the success that you want. Not like follow others. Like they were successful doing this, I'm going to be the same person. Well, you're not. You're not going to be the same person. It's like me as being silly saying, I want to play in the NFL right now. I would absolutely love to play in the NFL, but the chances of that are zero. Okay. It's not going to happen. Okay. So, for obvious reasons, too old, not capable, bad hand eye coordination, on and on and on. Okay. So, you have to pick things that you're good at, and everyone makes a decision to do that. I mean, such as you, Samuel, you're like really good. You're fearless, obviously. You love to talk to people. You love to listen. You want to broadcast your feelings and you want to broadcast what you're doing. So you're doing exactly what you like doing. You're enjoying it.
Thanks
You
a
love
lot.
it. And so this is what's great for you. And you will continue your um, journey to successful media, whatever format that is, or whatever it is. And so you're on your path. So you're obviously doing what you love and you're confident and can feel it even through the Zoom screen or whatever platform we're on.
Yeah, Riverside. Thank you. Thanks a lot. But
Of
how
course.
how can someone figure out like if the thing that they're doing is something that they're like how can someone figure out if they're like either naturally bad at something or if they just need to like practice more to get better at it? Because of course, like when someone starts doing something, they're never going to be good.
That is true. And people learn in different ways. And I think that I think in your gut that you're like probably not succeeding at a certain thing. I usually say to people when I'm sitting in front of them or coaching, I'm like, can you tell me something in your past? And the younger heart you are, it's harder that you have been very successful at. Like, what are you most proud of? And what have you been the most successful at? And then I ask the opposite. What has been a disaster? And, we laugh. Like, what's been just a train wreck?
Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, well, what did we learn from that? Why were you good at that? What made you good at that? What made you capable? If you want that feeling again, how do we get you back to that feeling? And so, there's many different things. There's many different personalities. And sometimes the hardest ones to accomplish are like some people early in life get massively good feedback, for different reasons. Younger people in school, whatever, sometimes they have very excellent social capability. And so they're just getting all this great feedback and they exit that world. And then suddenly it's not only about your social capability, it's what
yeah,
you know and your work ethic and everything else. And sometimes there's massive failure at that point. If you've seen a lot of young people like that, like, I don't get it. In other words, everyone always came to them. Like things were happened because it came to them for whatever reasons at that moment in time. So that's sometimes hard to get over. I'm like, okay, well, what made you successful? What didn't make you successful? And what's not making you successful today? And what do we need to change? What do we find in that personality? Does that make any sense? I
yeah.
call it, you're gonna get lots of bad feedback. I call it the curse of the home. I don't even know if they have homecoming kings and queens any longer anyway. But it's like I think it's the curse of that. That these kids are, the like everything's amazing, and all of a sudden there's just a train wreck after they finish high school, go to college, depending on if they continue to be successful in sports or whatever. So sometimes that's hard to get over. How do you switch gears there? And so not everybody, sometimes people continue their own success. So yeah, I think you just have to look at that. What has made you the happiest? What has made you successful? And success, and I don't want to just focus on money, because success comes in many forms and you don't necessarily have to make a lot of money to be successful. In fact, some of the greatest careers and things that have changed society have been not associated with money. I think there's a massive focus on that today, and I'm not denying the fact that it's important, but it's also one should embrace people who are successful artists or successful in social work or successful in changing the dynamics of something or successful in volunteering in places that don't have the ability or knowledge to change something. There may not be money in it, but they have changed uh, something for the better or thousands of lives for the better. So, I don't want to just say, I know your show's about like, how do you make a lot of money? But I also say that that if you're excellent at what you're doing, if you're passionate and you're excellent at what you're doing, the money will come. So that's something that people don't have patience for. If you're really good at it, keep doing it and the money will come. It always does, weirdly enough. Unless you've chosen a career, then maybe they never pay, but it will
Yeah.
come to the highest level of that specific career, job, or service.
Yeah, you're right. And something I was thinking about earlier today was that like if you put your whole life towards like becoming successful financially and you do end up becoming financially successful, but you sacrifice your relationships and everything else along the way, then you're not actually a successful person. Like I think to be truly successful, you have to be doing well in like all areas of your life, like your health, wealth, and relationships. At least that's my opinion.
Um, well, I think that is a great idea. Samuel, I love that idea, but I think that that's not necessarily true for
Okay.
most people because things go wrong in different areas. So, truly successful people are the people that are pivoting when something goes wrong in one of those three silos that you described. So, yes, there are people that, everything's perfect and it's wonderful, but that's life it throws you curves. And, like, what are you going to do with those curveballs? I mean, it's just the way it is. I've been on this planet long enough to see many different curveballs. And like, how are you going to handle that? What are you going to do with that? What are you going to fix? What are you going to, you just going to accept it? You can accept your fate or are you going to change it? And that's where things happen. So a lot of people get stuck in the mud because the negative feedback gets so strong, they get stuck. How do you get unstuck is really what it is. What do you do? And so sometimes it takes a breaking of that stickiness. Sometimes it takes what are you doing for self-help? Maybe it's a meditation or more exercise. Like, how do you unstick yourself mentally in order to accomplish that goal? So I get a lot of questions about that. Like, I'm stuck. What do I do? How do I change? What do I do to get out of that? And so I think it's really starts from the beginning. Like, you have to change your mental state. You're telling me you're stuck. So if you
Mhm.
say you're stuck, guess what? You're stuck. So what are you going to do? It's like excuse me, it's one step at a time, is really what it is. One thing at a time. So if people are really bad shape, then I just say, well, let's make one step forward. Let's pick one step. And then day by day, get out of that rut or introduce them to the right person or get them to the right help or get them to the right place so they can get to that positive result.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned your inner genius like a few minutes ago, and I know that's something that you talk about a lot. So I want to ask you first, like, what's your inner genius, and how did you find it?
Um, no one's ever asked me that.
Oh,
Very
really?
good. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Hmm. That's surprising because that's what you talk about.
I know. No one's ever asked me that question. So
Yeah.
if I had to answer that, I think it's my capability of empathy. It's my capability of seeing people rapidly and like seeing what they're feeling or what they are, or what their vibe is. Understanding that and communicating to them on the type of language they want to hear to get them to a different place. I think it's my empathy or um, a capability of, and they're seeing that I'm being truthful and helpful. They're not like it's not, and I think that's maybe my inner genius. I think also my inner genius is fearless and charismatic. I don't fear like walk in the room, and I like feel great. Like I'm here.
Yeah.
Like what are we doing today? We're here. What's happening? Who wants lunch? So I could be in a major argument and then stop the argument and say, okay, are you hungry? And so, I mean, I have sort of a charismatic quality that I love people and I love the energy that it creates. And so maybe that's my inner genius. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's correct. I think that's what I have to offer the world. So
How could someone find their inner genius?
they find it through like what I said earlier, like what are they most successful at? What do they love doing? What are they like good at? What are they, feel great at? What is that they're getting positive feedback? What is that they're like, oh, this feels great. I love doing this. This is so interesting to me. This is I'm excited about this. I'm excited about building this, So they find it through those types of successes. They find, what is their inner genius through what when someone says I've never been successful, I don't mean to laugh, but sometimes I'll get someone to say I've never been successful at anything. I'm like, nothing. There's nothing, and then I'll use humor. There's got to be something. Like, give me one positive threat, and then you work from there. Usually, there's no way that everyone has had nothing but negativity in their entire existence. So anyway, so I think it's really kind of looking at your entire past. It's really talking about looking at your story. It's looking at your narrative to find what is your inner genius. And you work on that and you see if that changed. And if it's not working, then you try to switch gears, or you tell somebody like, okay, well, this isn't working for you, this behavior. I'm not telling people to change their personality, but let's try something else. Let's see if you can use yourself the same personality, but let's try something else. Let's see if you get positive feedback from this. And usually it works. Usually I get a positive thing. Well, that worked. I'm like, what a surprise. And it's not like I'm telling anybody that people don't already know. It's not like I'm inventing something like, my God, I'm a genius. And I'm like things that they probably already know, they probably already feel, and they just want to hear it. They want to get validation. They need to have kind of like, the water spine going in. So you just sort of push them in the water. And for using that analogy from my past in the pool.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's super true. So basically just like figuring out what you were successful at before, like what made you feel good in the past and then what didn't, and then just trying as many things as you can that are kind of related to that thing that made you feel good in the past.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have this podcast, and you're young, and you have a voice that you want to speak on, and like young people want to hear from older or more established entrepreneurs or whatever success. You want to hear the stories and narratives. But your motivation is, and your inner genius probably is that you're exploratory. You like want to hear, you want to accelerate your knowledge. I'm guessing your
Mhm.
knowledge. You want to accelerate your wisdom. You want all that wisdom from years of experience as quickly as possible. I'm guessing, or maybe I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, I think somewhat, but I think like the main reason why I do this podcast is basically just to help people and like make an impact on the world. I think similar to you actually. I think like my inner genius is probably something related to just like helping people, and I
That's
guess
good.
just yeah, I guess just like being driven to help as many people as I can with this.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
great. I applaud that.
Thank you, thank you. Well, something else that I wanted to bring up with you that I think I might have seen this in one of your past interviews or one of your blog posts, but it's not believing your own bullshit. Could you
Yes.
could you could you expand on that a bit more?
Well, one of the great features of human beings is they tend to want to believe their own bullshit, because it makes you feel better. And so, in your heart of hearts, if you're spewing crap, and if you believe it, you're toast. So as soon as sometimes when people get so successful, they start believing things like they're like everything they do is brilliant. I mean, classic example, I've done post. I There are things that Elon Musk does. He is a genius. I'm not going to question
Yeah.
that. The guy's a genius, and he's accomplished things that no one else has ever accomplished. And I think he's the wealthiest person. I mean, if you're counting money as the arbiter of success, well, he wins, right? So he's
Yeah.
changed the planet. Um, However, he started believing his own bullshit and wanted to buy Twitter. Well, that was absurd. Okay, that was just an absurd game. Now, maybe in the end, he's pivoting and he's changing and he's hiring people, and it's fun to watch. And I'm not going to take anything away from him. And I would never bet against him. I actually think he'll make Twitter successful. But I
Yeah.
think that's a classic example where he probably believed his own BS at that moment in time. And he just like, I know what I'm doing and I'm going to do this. And everyone like ran for the hills. And then, he's like, uh-oh, maybe I didn't. And I better hire the people to fix this or help me and fix this. So that's an extreme example. Like I said, I don't want to take anything away from him. I mean, he's extraordinary individual that's changed the planet in many ways. Um, for the better in many ways. But that's a classic example of someone believing their own bullshit. So that's what I mean. And so usually it's either one way or the other. It's either they're incredibly unsuccessful in everything they're doing and they're believing their own BS as far as like I'm going to keep doing this, which is really the definition of insanity, trying the same
Yeah.
action to get a different result, and then all of a sudden expecting a different result. Or in the other way, they're so successful, like I know what I'm doing, and they're not listening to me. And have I done things like that before? Yes. Have I believed my own bullshit? Yes. The question is, what did I do when I believe my own bullshit and just pivot? And quickly, like, and you can laugh at it. I'm like, well, I guess I was a little too confident on that one. And so, what do you do to pivot? And sort of, as I say, you do the Maxine maneuver. I got a bad hand here. I blew it. Okay. I believe my own BS and then moved on. So that's just age. You learn from experience, hopefully. And I think it's part of the fun in some ways, and sometimes it could be a disaster, I suppose. But yeah, how do I teach people not to do that? I don't have the answer to that. I tell them don't believe it because I've experienced it, and I see other people, and you just point out other examples, and you
Yeah.
say, well, did that work for them, even though they are a genius? And usually people are like, yeah, I never thought about it that way. So anyway. It's like
Yeah. How,
like your generation, like everyone was into cryptocurrencies or
yeah.
alternate holding of value. And meanwhile, like my generation, I was saying I had friends who are big influencers, and they're buying like crypto like crazy. And I remember at one point the crypto was at its highest level, and I don't know, Bitcoin was at 60 something thousand. And I remember begging, they had made millions. I remember begging, just sell half, begging. Trust me, this is not going to work. You're believing your own bullshit.
Yeah.
Just trust. Just sell half. You've made money, and you can keep the other, and you can ride it out, right? They didn't do it, and it's lost. And of course, they came to me afterwards and said, "You were right. You were right." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't want to be right. You just believe in your own BS. I wasn't like looking to you to lose money. I was trying to help you. I'm like, if I was you, I'd sell everything. But I mean, in crypto, and I don't know the future of cryptocurrencies, but I have a hard time um, adjusting to that concept. I find, the money is really a government controlled concept. So I have a hard time with storing value and things like that. But listen, I think that there's value to some of these. I'm going to get on a tangent to cryptocurrency. Clearly, obviously, if you think there's value, there's value. But the question is like, what level of value? That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Have you ever like done any experimenting with crypto?
Yes, I've traded crypto
Oh
because
yeah.
I've been a trader, and so I call it momentum trading. So value is what people believe value is. It's kind of a weird concept. So I've traded it on sort of momentum trading. So momentum trading is like everyone's like, this is the greatest thing that happened. So I'll trade it, but I never stored value. I never belief. Like
Yeah.
value is in what are people doing in services or businesses or products that have long-term solutions, or they're making money, or they're having returns, or there's intellectual property, or I mean I can go on and on. So yes, I've had fun with it, and because I'm a trader. I mean I'm somebody who likes to trade assets, so I just used the momentum. Do I believe in long-term storage of value? Like the greatest investor of all time is Warren Buffett. Is that trading crypto? No. In fact, I think Charlie Munger said some expletive or something. He's his partner, and he's in his 90s. It's this thing. You can look at a crypto. It's one of the funnier lines I've ever heard. It's obviously an older gentleman that did not filter what he said.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet.
Mm.
So I it's there's about 20 minutes left. So I want to I want to move this podcast over to more like advice for young entrepreneurs, because I know that is like the demographic of people who be watching or listening to this.
Sure.
So yeah, the first question I want to ask you is what what are some of the less obvious reasons why you found success in business?
Boy, you're good at this, Samuel. You're
Thank
you're
you.
good at a lot of a lot of older podcasters, huh? I'm going to see you 10 years from now. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that a lot. Thanks.
So yeah, absolutely. So your question is what do I ask that question again?
What are some of the less obvious reasons why you found success in business and like trading?
Um, reading the room, like feeling the vibe of the experience. Like, what are what are they putting out? All commerce is somehow, some way involving human beings. Okay, it's just somewhere, even if it's coded or apps or like somewhere, some way they're reading human behavior.
Hmm.
Um, and they're putting them in their models and they're creating it. So the less obvious things are me like reading what are people vibing. So if I was trading on the floor, the roar of the crowd, or trying to read the tape. So those are less obvious, reading that situation. So I don't think that's obvious. I think that's a hard thing to learn to do, but people need to learn to do that. So I think that would be less obvious. I think also less obvious is trying to interact with people when you're having a hard time and trying to find a connection. I think people sometimes give up, and I think you should never give up. Like, what are they into? How do they communicate? What is the best way to get across what you're trying to do or what they're trying to do? So I think that's some of the less obvious things that young people need to learn to do. And
Yeah.
so it's hard to do that as a young person because you're not as exposed to all the different types of people, or not exposed to as many behaviors or as many experiences in order to learn that. So the best suggestion I would make is to try to put yourself in as many safe, let's just say safe situations, not unsafe situations that you possibly can, in order to accomplish that. So, interviewing people, or having lunch with people. I say to lots of young people, ask people to lunch and have a lunch with them. Like, well, they'll never say yes. I said, you'd be surprised how many times people will say yes. So, explore, experience, travel. The more you absorb in your young life, the more information, the more experiences, the more exposure you have, the more likely you're going to be able to um, learn that aspect. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, you're right about that for sure. And it's surprising like how many people that you don't think are gonna say yes actually end up saying yes. Like
Yeah.
if I see someone who I think like would be cool to have on the podcast, like you for example, but I don't really think they'd like say yes. I still just invite them anyways because it takes like a minute and then the worst they can say is no. So yeah,
I saw, I have somebody who helps me with all my stuff. And so they sent it to me, and I'm like, do you want to do this? And I saw your age, and I said, absolutely. I said, that's fantastic. He's asking. And so, not that I'm that great, but I mean, I think you're exactly right. So I think a lot of people will say yes. They want to share, or I think people are scared of just asking. Many of the things that I've been able to accomplish is because I have been fearless in asking the question or asking for the order. I'm like, hey, would you do this? Would you be willing to do this? Would you talk to me? Would you? And people that like, oh my gosh, as a younger person, it's harder. And as you get older, you get more credibility, and people just start saying yes for probably the wrong reasons. But needless to say, they're saying yes. So yeah, I think that you're right. You're on your way. Never ever let any miss never let any barrier be in your way for what you may perceive as a wall, like, oh, they won't listen to me. I think that's a huge mistake. In fact, in the book I have this thing called mikesisms, right? How narcissistic can I be? I call my things mikesisms. Take every call and take every meeting. I really believe in that. I don't care who it is. I don't care what they're, if they're horrible people, I won't take the call. But if
yeah.
they're um, and I do that. And I think people are always surprised with that. I'll take every call, every meeting, because you know what happens? You never know. Everyone can learn from someone else. You never know. You may trigger something in them. You may listen to them. They may make you more creative, which is ultimately the way you make the greatest amount of money. You ask me a question. I've been on this planet a long time and no one's ever asked before. What's your inner genius? I'm like, wow, look at that. Now I got to think about it all day. So you triggered me on something. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I still can't believe like no one's asked you that before because
No,
I know that you talk about that all the time. I honestly thought that's something that you'd get asked like all the time by people. So so yeah, the next question I want to ask you is, what skill do you wish you knew earlier?
um, what skill did I wish I knew earlier? I would have been a better student. I was a bad student. I was a very good test taker. I get huge scores on my, standardized testing, or I could get away with it because I could figure out what they were trying to do with the test. Um, so it got me through school. But I think that I would have been a better student, and I am today. I would have not as wasted so much time. I think that there's a huge reward to succeeding in school. It's not for everybody. I'm not saying that, but that would be something that I would have probably done differently um, in retrospect. But like that's the funny part about you're probably entering college here momentarily, I guess, and so or maybe you're in college. I don't know right now. So um, I would only say that pursue those passions in school and be a better student. And it doesn't only have to be um, school. There are other things that people can learn by. So, yeah, I wasted a lot of time. Like I can, because it was easy for me. It was just like I could skate with a test, or I could, So that was a mistake. I would have done differently.
What are your thoughts on like not going to college? Because that's what I'm planning to do right now. Like just keep going with this podcast, my business, and just not go to college. And I know that's something that's getting like increasingly more and more popular. So what are your thoughts on like young people doing that?
Well, Samuel, I'm going to tell you to go to college, even though you don't want to go to college. And I'm going to tell you to go to college for the number one reason that you're doing this, because it's a huge experiment on exploring who you are, what you are, and getting exposed to as many things as possible in a safe environment to experience quickly. So yes, there is concerns over the monetary aspects of it. Are you getting returns and all of these practical issues? But no, I think, and I'm not just saying this as older person. I'm saying this because I don't care what college you go to. I don't care if it's a community college or state. I don't even know where you're located in the nation. But
Canada,
um,
actually,
I'm sorry.
Canada.
Oh,
I
Canada.
yeah,
Well,
I feel like what's that?
can't you get? Doesn't that come? Don't they pay for it in Canada or no?
No, a lot of people like a lot of people who I've talked to who aren't from Canada think that, but
No.
no, they don't. You got to pay for it.
So I would say that is a great way to experience. So I probably telling you something your parents are telling you. So I apologize over that to reinforce that. And I'm not saying that you're not going to be successful. I can clearly see you're going to be successful in your life. Clearly, you have the charismatic qualities and the qualities necessary to create your success, and you're fearless, which is awesome. However, you'll accelerate that through that exposure. So I would say you should go. I don't care if it's a community college, a 4-year college. I don't care where it is. I don't care what the name of it is. But yeah, I think it's an important thing for you. And since you're into asking questions and the humanities and helping people, so then maybe you should be studying that. Certainly journalism or humanities of some kind, or liberal arts education, so that you're just exposed to as many people as possible, and writing as well. So anyway, sorry to tell you that.
No, no worries. What did you learn from going to college?
Who exposure to as many people as possible, who
Yeah.
uh, refining who I am, comfort levels in my own experiences, just a massive amount of exposure, continuing my labor leading. Show me the 5-year-old, I'll show you the man. If I were to go back to your history, Samuel, I'm guessing there are parts of you that and your parents are probably saying, yeah, I'm not surprised that he's doing this because this is who he was. So those are types of things. I make a joke. I'll tell you a story. I don't know if this was in the
Yeah.
book. I don't remember. I read edited the book so many times. Like, there was a thing. Was there a story in there about Schmaltz-Haven? I can't remember.
I I
Probably
don't
not. So anyway, I was always a hypochondriac. So I always thought I was dying, or even as a young kid. And so my favorite thing in elementary school was show and tell. So I don't think they do that anymore. You just go in front of the classroom and you talk about something like an item that you have or a vacation you took or whatever. So of course, show and tell is like the greatest thing. So is there anything different about me today? No, I'll like run out in front of the room and say, "Let me tell you something," or tell a story. So I think that that was part of me, and so there was a story called Schmaltz-Haven. Schmaltz-Haven, Schmaltz is fat, okay, and Haven means home, and so my I was horsing around a pool. I think we went to Cleveland of all places,
yeah.
for a spring break. I don't know if are you in Toronto or Toronto or
I'm in Victoria, so
oh
pretty close to
oh
Seattle.
yeah, really pretty. Yeah, near Seattle. So anyway, we were in Cleveland to visit friends for like spring break, and I was horsing around the pool, and I think it's the first time, I don't know, I was like 7 years old or something like that. I got
Yeah,
the wind knocked out of me. So I don't know if you've ever gotten the wind knocked out of you, but you can't breathe, and so it's
yeah,
like really kind of scary. And I was panicked, and I ran up to my parents' room, hotel room. I'm like, "Dad, there's something wrong with me." I mean, he said, "No, you got the wind knocked out of you. You're fine." I'm like, "No, there's something wrong. I'm telling you, there's something wrong." And I wouldn't give it up. So he gave it a fake name, and he said, "Well, you're Schmaltz-Haven." And so he meant that I dislodged fat in my body, if you can imagine, and I was trying to find a new home. So I thought I had this thing, and I was telling everybody I have Schmaltz-Haven. So father pushed this storyline on me. And so, of course, I got back to elementary school, and everyone's talking about their vacations. Like I was bragging about my vacation to Cleveland. Who brags about a vacation to Cleveland? Okay, this is how this started out. And so I get in front of the room, and the teachers in the back, I remember holding papers, and I'm like, it's like, well, I went on spring break, and I went, to Cleveland, and I said, and I came back with the disease. I'll be fine. And the disease is Schmaltz-Haven. So the teacher put the words in there, and so she dropped the thing and started laughing hysterically that I was telling people that I had this like fake disease. And of course, I knew that my father had, made fun of me, and he gave me a disease name. So I guess the moral of the story, or why I'm telling you that, is that you know, um, there are these bits and pieces in your life that you have seen who you are with the best of you is, or how you feel comfortable, and how do you continue to refine those things. So like that little story of Schmaltz-Haven, or that story of me speaking, like couldn't wait to be in front of a room to speak, continued to refine as I went through schooling, and continue to attend lectures, or continue to try to educate myself, or continue to read. So anyway, sorry to get on a tangent, but
no, no, I love that. So funny.
yeah, you probably never heard this on your podcast before.
Oh no, no, but thanks for
Sure.
telling it. Yeah, it's like it's always like really really good when people tell stories on a podcast. It just like brings it to life, you know. So yeah, super glad that you've told quite a few stories on here.
Mm.
Anyways, yeah, we're almost at time. So the final question I want to ask you is that for all the young entrepreneurs watching this, are there any traps or things that they should watch out for in business that you don't really see too many people talk about online? Because I know like online entrepreneurship is like super glamorized. Like everyone thinks it's this like super like easy thing, and like you just start a business then become rich. But as we all know, it's a very hard thing. So what do you think? Like some things that some things that people should watch out for would be
You mean on online businesses only, or just in general? You're saying?
just like in general, like general business.
I think people should watch. I think great businesses are great ideas that start with passion, and the right amount of capital is necessary. And I think also the knowledge base. So, like before, the traps is that you don't have the knowledge to do what you're doing, that you don't have enough capital to do what you're doing, and the passion isn't there. Is the passion just about money? the passion is just about money, I'm not going to say it's never going to work, but it's probably less likely to work. Okay. Um, Long term or to create wealth. So creating wealth is about equity. I've said this before and many times. It's not about creating income. So I
Yeah.
think that's where people make mistakes. So yeah, I think those are the three fundamental things that they need to watch out for, and also stop listening to absurd stories of success when they're not real. Look in behind the scene, look behind, ask the question. If you want to do something, ask the hard questions. Ask the questions like, what's your inner genius? Ask the questions of, what have you done or how have you not done it? And also in coaching, if you want people to be your coach, have they been successful in the business or in the business at all? I find that I'm going to get lots of hate mail now. I see all these coaches running around that they've never done anything other than coaching. Well, like, what does that mean? Like, have you had any life experience? Like, have you done it? Have you experienced loss and positives and pivoting? It's easy to say these things. It's hard to live them. It's hard to relate to them. So I think a lot of times people reach to the wrong people. They're reaching to people that are telling them what they want to hear versus what they don't want to hear. So the first thing is, don't. If someone is telling you nothing but everything you want to hear, that is a major warning sign, isn't it? It's a huge warning sign. Like, well, I don't really want to hear that. Well, sorry, but this is a probable course of action. So I mean, there's just countless things, and know your strengths. Like, don't go into business where you're not strong in that area. Like,
Yeah.
if the business needs uh, really good verbal skills, and if you're really bad at it, I mean, I suppose you can learn it, but I mean, how long is that going to take? Or if the business needs really good written skills, like if you're really bad at writing, then maybe you shouldn't be in that. Or if the business needs you to be doing public speaking, and if you're just completely unnerved by that, which there are a lot of people who have accomplished massive capability, are just frightened of it, or they can't just go up in front of a room in public. So you gotta have a good friend who is a genius, and he has accomplished massive success, massive by every measure. And I want to name it. But for him to go in front of a room, it takes him weeks of preparation, even though he knows it cold and is brighter than everyone else in the room. So he'll look at me, we'll be sometimes speaking in the same thing, and I'll just sort of wing it. I'll go up there and wing it. And like, well, I know the topic. And so it's more than likely going to be more engaging in the audience if I'm just sort of free speeching, listening to what they're saying. I'm like, am I reading the tape? Am I reading the room? Do they want to hear this? If I see everyone sort of like nodding off, like, well, let's switch gears. This doesn't matter what I prepared. Like, you guys are not interested. So let's
Yeah.
switch. So that's hard. How do you change that? So I think that people need to take stock of themselves, and sometimes they need a friend, family member who's very honest with them. It's like, what do you think? Is this something that I can do or not do? Or they find a partner or a business partner that will give them those opportunities in whatever arena that they want to work. If that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So just like having other people alongside you who can like tell you the truth, and who who you can just like get help from, because you can't do everything alone, of course.
You can't. You need help no matter what. So yes, I would think that find the people that are the missing pieces that you have in your life. Find those people to be successful. Absolutely.
100%. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Mike. It was such a pleasure. You sharing all your wisdom, sharing those stories on here. And yeah, really appreciate you coming on. If you want to check out his book, Read the Tape, like I said at the start, the link is going to be in the description down below. So go check that out. Um,
Samuel, you're excellent at what you've done, and I fully expect to read a book that you've written one day. I expect to see you on one of the major podcasters, so I can vibe it. So you're on your way. But go to college.
yeah, well, thanks a lot. That really means a lot.
Okay.
Um, yeah, well, appreciate you coming on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, Mike.
You too. Enjoy. Have fun.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye bye.